A question for you, and I think it's an interesting one. If I invested $25 and I invested $8,000 separately, but into the same thing, which one do you think would give me a higher yield? Because the answer is more complicated than you'd think. This is a GPX 6000. It is worth $8,000 stock standard. If you whack a coil on the end of it like that, you're up for probably another $300 to $800. Whereas this is a $10 gold pan, but you can buy really expensive ones that cost you 25 bucks. And I'm just looking at the rock that was in that pan. I have no idea where that came from or what's in it, so I guess I'm gonna have to crush it. Anyway, they both find gold. That's their purpose. With a metal detector, you're looking for things like this. You're looking for chunky nuggets. This looks like a rock. Hang on a second. Metal detectors are basically only capable of finding chunks. Now, some of them can find very small chunks, but they still have to be chunks. Whereas a gold pan will find any kind of gold. It really doesn't matter. It can go down to as small as you can see, and it can catch it if you know how to pan. In the last 6 or so months with that $8,000 metal detector, I've pulled out roughly 17 grams worth of chunky bits. And for me, that's pretty good. It's actually not bad. For my area, I've really struggled to find detectable gold just because the ground, the geology isn't correct for big chunky nuggets. But an $8,000 machine is pulling them out every single time I go out. They're just not adding up to a huge weight. In the same exact time that I've been detecting, I've been panning, and I've pulled 2.5 ounces of gold that looks something like this. This is from last week. That's 2.5 ounces of gold in exactly the same time period. So we're talking about 17 grams for detecting, and we're talking 2.5 ounces for panning and doing river sluicing. By a long shot, my $25 investment has made me far more money in returned gold than a detector has. But that's highly dependent on where you live. And I think this is the thing that I try to reiterate again and again on my channel, is that it is not the equipment you use, whilst that is important, it is where you live. Because if you don't get the correct equipment for the ground you're on, it's not going to make any difference to your gold take whether you have a $8,000 metal detector or a $100 metal detector. Because if there is no nuggets in your area, it's not going to be able to find them. It doesn't matter how much you spend on your detector. You've got to tailor your equipment to the ground. So no matter what you see on TV, you have to put in the research. And the research is pretty simple. Take a gold pan out. Test the creeks and rivers that you suspect have gold in it. Look at the size of the gold in it. If you're getting a lot of coarse, chunky bits, then it's a very good opportunity for you to take advantage of that by buying a metal detector. You can start off small. If you buy a $1,000 metal detector and you hunt the right areas, shallow ground that's not too mineralized, then you're definitely going to have a good chance of finding some nuggets with said machine. But if you've got nothing but flour gold in your pan, don't waste your money on a metal detector. Go and buy a sluice box. Go and buy a pan. But it has to be tailored to your ground. Now, there's one caveat to that. If you have the budget for an expensive metal detector and you're in an area that doesn't have much water and it has chunky gold, spend the money on getting a better detector. Because the more money you spend on a detector, the better it will perform. Detecting is literally one of the only things in this entire planet where you get exactly what you pay for. That is not to say something like a gold monster, which costs $1,000, isn't going to be able to find gold. They certainly can, and they can find a lot of it in the right areas. Again, it comes back to your ground and the area that you're working. It's just that 17 grams I pulled out with that GPX 6000, that's come out of ground that I've already detected with a $4,000 metal detector. So it shows you the difference in scalability. The more you pay for a detector, the better it'll perform. But it can only perform if the gold's in the ground that's of size that it can detect. And spending more on a metal detector is not necessarily a guaranteed way to increase your gold take. I've had plenty of places where I found a gold monster far more valuable than that $8,000 6000. So, once again, it's not the ground. No, reverse that. It's not the equipment. It's the ground. if you are not on the right ground for the equipment you're using, you're going to struggle no matter where you are in the world.